Part of this is who you're playing. Part of it's where you're playing.
Yep.
That a trip to Buffalo, a trip to Kansas City in the divisional round, I have a very hard time seeing the defense doing enough to win the game without getting a superlative offensive performance.
Receiver right now with 5 receptions on the day.
3rd and 5, Tua going deep. Oh, it's picked off! Stingley got it! Another interception! Hill out of bounds!
Great play by Derek Stingley Jr. to end the game for the Houston Texans. It was in Tyreek Hill's hands, and he absolutely just ripped it out, locked him down, really had an impressive game again. Has proved he's one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL statistically, and just watching him every single week, Sean, we're seeing how good Derek Stingley Jr. and just this defense can be for the Texans. And it raises this question of how far can the defense take the Texans' offense? How much of the burden can they carry for this team going forward? They obviously are AFC South champions for the second year in a row, so they've checked that box.
Yep.
They've got them through the season.
Raise the banner.
Yep, they were raising the banner.
They got the spot picked out for it.
I hope they actually don't. I think they need to retire the banners.
What?
It's time to raise the bar for the franchise.
Maybe make them all in one giant one.
Yeah, one big banner, and you add the years to it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't need maybe like the first title, like the first AFC South title, but then after that, like anything from like the Bill O'Brien era on.
Okay.
Anything from it doesn't matter, Brian, 9-7, Brian, AFC South champs, Brian. Anything from like that moment on can be put on one banner.
Yes. Okay.
Because like the standard should be raised, right?
Yes, the standard should be raised. Because at this point, it does feel like, and it is true. I forgot what I think it was since 2011, they've won 8 of the AFC South titles, and then the rest of the division is at 6. Like they majority of the time have won the AFC South, which is crazy to think about a team that 2 years ago was just in the absolute darkness, and now where they're at now with D'Amico Ryans, with CJ Stroud being part of it. I mean, they're again back-to-back AFC South champions is actually a very important accolade that they have.
It is. It's a good accolade that they have. It's still not where we thought the Texans were going to be this year. And if the Texans are going to go farther into the playoffs than just having one game at home versus whether it's the Ravens, Chargers, or Broncos, it does feel like the defense is going to have to push them, put them in a position very similar to what they did in this game versus the Dolphins, the game against Jared Goff and the Lions, where they're really going to have to limit a team to under 24 points. Like that kind of feels like the bar.
Yeah.
And honestly, it might be lower than that. But that's just asking so much of your defense in the playoffs against Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson to not give up at least 24 points. But I think for the Texans to advance farther in the playoffs than just the first round and to win a game, maybe 2 games, I think the defense has to really limit what they're allowing.
Well, it's also a situation where you see what they've done. Like you mentioned, they kept them in the Lions game by turning over Josh Allen 5 times, by forcing him to throw 5 interceptions. Josh Allen, now we think if we get a playoff rematch with Josh Allen that it won't go the way it went back in, what was that, like week 5 or 6 when they played. It was Josh Allen's worst game of the season. This is a defense that can force the opposing offense to have a bad day. And a lot of that is through the big plays that they can make, whether it's getting to the quarterback and sacking the quarterback, or if it is turning the ball over. That is where this defense can basically win you a game when you're not getting anything from the offense, like against the Dolphins, where they get 180 total yards of offense, and they are in relatively firm control of most of that game. It's because they force 4 turnovers. They are setting up the offense with short fields, and the offense is able to cash in on the red zone opportunities that they have. The question is, are they going to be able to do that in a playoff situation when you're not playing Tua with a banged up offense, but when you are playing, I mean, Bo Nix, he will be a rookie quarterback starting in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert did not play very well his first playoff game. This would be his second playoff game. January Lamar, playoff Lamar is a real thing. Now, I think Lamar is by far the best quarterback of any of the four that we're talking about right now.
But you're right, playoff Lamar is real.
So there is a path there for the first round that the Texans can have a defensive performance that makes it undeniable that they win. Honestly, not too different from the wild card game that they had against Joe Flacco and the Browns last season, where did that game turn around? They're giving up big plays. Where did that game turn around once they started getting to Joe Flacco and intercepting the ball?
Yeah, well, they had, 2 pick sixes in that game?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Texans defense can get them a playoff win, for sure. They can get you at least one because the offense has shown that they can score in the red zone. They're not great they're not great moving the ball down the field, but they are having a long drive to start this game against the Dolphins, ended in a short field goal. The long drive to start the second half that ended in a touchdown. Most of that yardage came on the fake punt play, like we've discussed that. But they got there twice, and they got 2 touchdowns from CJ to Nico Collins. That's the positive for the offense, that they've shown that they can do just enough. And really the question is going to be how much the offensive line, this is for real the last 2 games. It was better against Jacksonville, and even though CJ was sacked 4 times, I think at least half of those were on him, at least in this last game versus the Dolphins. So they had a better performance, at least in pass protection. They can't run the ball, but from a pass protection point, so if you can just get enough points from the offense, if you can get 20 points, 24 points, you definitely can win one playoff game. And it's not impossible to win a second.
Yeah, I think the second playoff win would come down more to the opponent, and that's where you're really kind of, I don't want to say stretching it, but that's where you're probably going to need a little bit more from the offense to keep moving along, where is less, if we're talking about how much can the defense kind of single-handedly win you a game like they did on Sunday, that's where in the second round you're going to need a little bit more from this offense. You're going to need either the passing attack to finally live up to its potential with Nico Collins, with Tank Dell, and protecting CJ long enough to get those plays down the field and start, or if they can figure it out running the ball like they have at certain points this season. It has been under different offensive line alignments than they've had as of late, but they have been able to win games by running the ball, giving it to Joe Mixon in the past. Now you need Joe Mixon to stay healthy, and he did get banged up late in Sunday's game. But
another hip drop tackle.
Yeah, didn't love that.
They don't know how to call.
But if you do get in a second round matchup where you are playing, if you can find a way to play the Steelers, if you can find a way to play the Ravens in the second round and not the first round, that I think is your best chance of getting to the AFC title game with this defense. You're going to need some help because I think ultimately part of this is who you're playing. Part of it's where you're playing.
Yep. That
a trip to Buffalo, a trip to Kansas City in the divisional round, I have a very hard time seeing the defense doing enough to win the game without getting a superlative offensive performance.
Yeah, the idea of this offensive running attack trying to play in the snow in Buffalo is frightening.
Yeah.
They already can't run the ball. I mean, it's 1.9 yards per carry for Joe Mixon in this last game, and that's not going to get any better. That's really the offensive line, like the running game's not going to get fixed. That I'm most confident about. Like the offense can still move the ball, but these teams, like you play Pittsburgh, Denver, Kansas City, like Buffalo,
it's who you play too.
Yeah.
That it's like if you're gonna get right on the ground game, it's not gonna be against these teams.
No, it's gonna all come down to CJ, and I think even like we're seeing the Texans, not just the fake punt play to show you how they truly feel about the Houston Texans offense. I also think the conscious decision to risk injury with Tank Dell and putting him as your punt returner, I think also shows that they're not feeling confident about where the offense is, because they're asking Tank Dell, saying, hey, go do what you did at the University of Houston. Like, go make some magic and help get better field position for the offense, because they're just not moving the ball. So I think D'Amico, like what they did during this bye week is that they're recognizing that defense and special teams is going to have to be the key to success the rest of the year. Unfortunately, I'm not sure it's going to take you into the second round of the playoffs. It gives you the best chance right now, your defense does, and now your special teams unit. But I'm just not sure we see like the end result that we all wanted before the season.
Oh yeah, it is hard to see that, especially if you're not going to get the offense that you thought you were going to get at the beginning of the season, which they're in a completely different world of what we thought that this team could really have the season they're having. Like if you said they're 9-5 so far this year, you'd be like, okay, that's maybe an extra loss that you thought after 14 games, but that's not out of the realm of possibility. But then when I tell you that the only time they've scored more than the only time they've gone over 30 points is against a bad Cowboys team and a bad Patriots team, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
This is happening in a very different way than we envisioned in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm fully prepared to go to LaBerge and cash in my over 9.5 ticket that I have on the Houston Texans. Be stunned if it doesn't cash at this point. But you never know.
You never know. That's why they play the game.
Carson Wentz on Saturday.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson on Christmas. Mason Rudolph in Week 18 versus Davis Mills.
Hopefully, because Will Levis is 1-0 this year against the Houston Texans.
No, I just realized that there's a chance that my ticket might come down to Davis Mills versus Mason Rudolph in the last game of the season. If they've clinched the 4 seed and they can't move to the 3 seed and CJ sits.
Yeah.
You know what also,
Good luck.
Don't sit the offense. The offense is not good. I know you risk injury. They need to at least play a half of football.
I was going to say
we're looking way into the future now.
Yes.
We're skipping the next 2 games, but like they do not need to be sitting anybody. They don't deserve to be sat.
I had the same exact thought that because in my mind they are pretty much locked into the 4 seed. You mostly by how little you believe in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't believe in Pittsburgh, so I think there's still an outside shot they get the 3 seed.
But in my
and the Carson Wentz potentially starting from Mahomes on Saturday.
In my mind, I'm thinking like, man, 3 games. You have 3 games and you've already clinched, and I don't know what you really need to be playing for. Like Joe Mixon, when you feel 110%, that's when you're back on the field.
Yeah, but even then, like they gotta, now that you've clinched the AFC South, if I was the Texans and Bobby Slowick, like I'm playing reckless the next 2 weeks. Like I am unloading the bag of just ideas of like, how do I get Nico Collins and Tank Dell and Robert Woods and Xavier Hutchinson, Mechie and all these, how do I get them open? How do I move this offense with only Dalton Schultz at tight end? Because I don't know how long you're out from an appendectomy like Cade Stover had an emergency appendectomy on Saturday night. Like, is he out for 2 weeks? Is he out for the season? Like, I don't know. Like you have 3 weeks to, now that you've clinched a playoff spot, to just say F it. And like, we're just going to let it rip. Tell CJ Stroud, stop holding the ball, throw 15 interceptions the next 2 weeks, just play reckless football. Go, like, you think he's open down the field, there's 2 guys, try to throw it to him.
Just go crazy.
Yeah. No, like, risk it all for all the biscuits the next 3 weeks. Just try everything.
Yeah. I mean, you are right that you can't just like pack it in for 3 straight games.
Not when your offense is trash.
Yeah. So they will have to, unfortunately, they will have to keep trying for the rest of the year. But I do think that's what's most important. If this was a team that, honestly, if this was a team that was clicking on all cylinders on offense, maybe I feel differently. But because this is a team that hasn't had it all year on offense, they haven't even had like really a stretch of games where they string together 3 good offensive performances in a row. That this is it. You really can't just pack it in. Like you do have to maybe not run through the tape because that week 18 game, I'd be okay if they only play the starters a half, or maybe depending on the injury situation with these guys, maybe not at all. A couple of them not at all, but they really do need to use this time to figure things out, which is a tremendous luxury to have.
Yes,
is to already have your playoff spot clinched, and you already know you're hosting a playoff game, and you still need to finish finding yourself on one side of the ball. Like that is a tremendous luxury you have, and it is something that they're going to have to do. And this week they're going to have the Chiefs, and maybe they get the Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs don't have a ton to play for. They still haven't clinched the 1 seed, but they are a game up, or no, 2 games up in the loss column on that. Although if they do tie, Buffalo has the head-to-head. So they do still probably need at least one more win or a Buffalo Bills lost, and the Bills play nobody for the rest of the season. So
Yeah, the Chiefs play the Texans, the Steelers, and the Broncos the final 3 games of the season.
So they're gonna need to win one of those games to get that bye. So you're gonna be in a weird spot where both teams kind of don't need to win this game. There's not like 100% all the way like win and in kind of situation, but they are two teams that still do need to play for something. And for the Texans, it's self-improvement. For the Chiefs, it's we win, so now Patrick Mahomes gets 3 more weeks off.
Yes.